All right, I believe we are streaming now. Welcome to live stream number 2. So last week when I was talking with you, we were talking about uh, the T3 storytelling technique in general. I gave you a general overview of how it works: tease, tell, told, and I gave you an example. If you want to see exactly what that structure is so you have an idea of what we're talking about right now, just go back. I encourage you to look at the YouTube channel that we have linked there, or look at LinkedIn at the previous streams, and you can find it there. We're trying to put everything on YouTube as soon as we're done. That way you can click through. If I refer to something that I talked about in the past, you can always go and back and refer to it as well. So adding a couple new things today as well, the new camera angle, obviously, but also we've got the chat up here. I forget used to mirroring everything. So we have the chat up here. I'm going to bounce back to this probably at the end. I'll try to remember to do it while I'm actually talking to you about some things, even though this one's going to be pretty brief today. So I'll try to remember to do that as well, but I'll definitely bounce back here at least at the end and try to address any questions that anyone has, if anyone has any questions. Sometimes people are quiet, it's totally fine. And we're just starting to do this, so there might not be a whole lot of you watching right now. Some of you might be watching the recordings instead. That's great. So as we start to do these things and we start to get better at them, we're just going to share them with you as well. So today what I'm going to talk about is specifically, I'm going to go into the first part of the tease, tell, told structure. So it's the tease itself. Last week I gave you an example of exactly how you can use a tease, and I gave you an example. I went into role. I went into a role like an actor did. If anyone remembers Waiting for Guffman, it was like scene, went into role. And I gave you an example of how you could light yourself better by putting it in the T3 structure. Now, what I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to give you, I think, 3, maybe 4 examples of different teases you could use for the same subject. Different ways you could go about grabbing your audience's brain, getting some brain share, getting their attention, getting them in the car with you, if you will, before you start getting into your content. It doesn't matter if you are doing something like this, like a live stream, if you're doing a demo or presentation, if you're doing a keynote, you want to tease their brain first, get their brain inquisitive, and to be something that is more attractive than this that they have in their hand, which is highly limbic. We'll talk about limbics another time. But I'm going to show you a few more things that you could use, and I'll go into role each time. Let's say, for sake of argument, that I am trying to demonstrate a new communication software or something. And some of you may recognize the format. It's very Teams-esque from Microsoft. But you can just pretend that maybe I am showing my software or our solution or our service to another company, and I'm trying to tease their brain first before I go into my content. So these are a couple different ways that you could do that, because you always want to be aware of who you are and what your style is and what's fun for you to tell a story or an analogy or a powerful question, all these kinds of things, industry statistic, all these sorts of things that you can use, that you have at your disposal, that might fit with your own personal style, the way that you like to capture people's mind share, because of the fact that that's how you respond to information. That's what you find curiosity inducing. But you also want to layer that with, at the same time, who is the specific audience you're presenting to this time? Who are the people in the audience? Are they people that are going to be more apt to have their imaginations captured by a personal anecdote or story? Are they conversely going to be more of a very highly analytical audience? So maybe facts and figures and customer quotes and things like that. Those are things that their brain finds very engaging and that make them feel like they can pay attention and that they're comfortable with it. And it's also curiosity inducing for them. So you always want to be looking at that balance, because every audience is different, right? And your personal style, while having some minor variations, probably you're going to be attracted to one of these ways to tease your audience brain or another. And that's totally normal and totally fun and fine. You might change from time to time based on your audience, though. So it's good to know a couple of these different tease techniques so that you can marry that, hey, what feels good at a gut level with my personal style, with who's the specific audience I'm presenting to this time. Are they high technical? Are they more in the marketing space? Who are they? And then you can gauge appropriately. Now, the advanced technique for that, once you get further down the line, is could you do multiple teases during the same large opening that you're having or something like that for your keynote or for your presentation or your demo? The answer is yes. You absolutely could do that. And you can get there over time. So maybe if you know that maybe you think your audience is a little bit blended. Some of them are going to like a personal anecdote or story, and that'll capture their attention. But there might be some people in the audience that you know that are maybe more apt to want facts and figures and things like that. So maybe you do a little bit of both, which is totally fine. So anyway, enough about that. I'm going to jump in now and show you some examples of this. So I'll go into roll, and you'll basically be getting the same setup for the same thing multiple different times, but I'm just going to show you different ways that you might tease their brain each time, depending on who your audience is and your own personal style. Okay, let's jump in. Let's go over to the movie theater. So here we are again. As you notice, I noticed how to get rid of my background this last time, so this is kind of fun. I feel kind of floaty. All right, so here we are in the theater. This is what we're going to be talking about today. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the T3 storytelling technique, but we're going to be talking about the T3 storytelling structure element of the T's. That's just what we're focusing on today, and it's going to be pretty short. This might only take 5 or 10 minutes. So, that's good. Give you some information, and then you can go about your day. So let's talk about that T's. Now, the first thing that you're going to want to remember for the T's is probably what I did last time, right? So if you remember, again, you can go back and watch us on our YouTube channel. Look for OMH Creative and just look for our YouTube channel there if you want to see what we did last week where we show you the structure. But what I showed you there was a personal story. That is a way to grab your audience's attention and get them with you right away. These are great, just to revisit this, because of the fact that once you start looking for instances in your life that happen to you, you'll notice that there's little stories that you can use that you'll start to notice the theme of that story and how it affects you in your personal life, and you can relate it to a topic that you want to tell people about. So use a personal example or a personal story from your own life as you're going through your own day that you might want to use that. You always want to layer what you're doing. Either of these techniques, whether it is a personal story, whether it's an analogy, whether it is a customer quote, whether it is a facts and figures from industry experts, whether it's a powerful question, you always want to have a strong intention. So actors use this all the time. You need to know what your intention is for the scene. What's your intention for your scene partner? In this case, what's your intention for your audience? What do you want to help them with? What do you want to do? Make it action-oriented. So my intention last week, when I was giving you a personal story, my intention was to convince you. I told you about my story about Microsoft Inspire, about us doing a commercial for them, me being a producer, and what we had to do there in order to make sure the lighting worked out. So my intention was to convince you there, to convince you that this was possible for you and that you didn't have to spend a lot of time or a lot of money to make good lighting happen for you in whatever environment that you're in, even if you're using stuff that you just have around the house. So another thing that you can do, which is super fun, is you can use video. Use a video. There's such a wealth of videos and things that are out there that have themes, especially if you can find a funny video, a meme, anything that can grab your audience's attention. It's highly visual, so their brains are already tickled by it. And that's how we spend our time, right? We love Netflix binging. We love watching movies. We love that experience. We watch YouTube. We love consuming information in the form of video. So let the video do the work for you. For instance, here's one from I Love Lucy. So go ahead and watch this, and then I will transition into what we're doing. So for instance, I'll go into roll right now. So welcome everybody. Before we get started today, I just wanted to show you something real quick, and I'll show you how this applies to what we're talking about today.
Oh, this is easier. Yeah, we can handle this, okay?
splendidly. Speed it up a little!
So the reason I showed you this video is because it can feel like this, right? It can feel like, especially with the more and more emails we get in our inbox every single day from colleagues where we're trying to track multiple projects, knowing the status or the current version of any given thing with attachments and who has the latest version and all those sorts of things. It can really seem like it's just the conveyor belt is speeding up constantly and that we're expected to catch up, but eventually we're going to start missing things, right? And so what we're here to talk about today is how you're going to be able to collaborate and keep track of things in one central place that makes it way easier than using email. That way you're able to go ahead and interact with your colleagues, but always know that you have the most recent iteration of something, that you're collaborating on the most recent version of that, and it seems seamless and easy instead of an overwhelming inbox where you're afraid, you're terrified you're going to miss an email that's really important for yourself or for a customer. So out of roll now, that would be my example of how to use a video and a story, an analogy, conveyor belt. It can seem like it feels this way. I used humor as well, and I let the video do all the work. I didn't say hardly anything at the beginning. I just said, hey, I'm going to show you something. It applies to what we'll be talking about today. And then I gave my audience an enjoyable experience, something that earned their attention away from a device or that red bang email that just came in from their boss. That way it's easy, it's fun, and then I've teased their brain and I'm bringing them along to the content. So that's one example of what you can do. So another example of a tease that's super easy to do is the powerful question. So let's say that I was going to use a powerful question, and then my intention was to intrigue you. A lot of times that's what a powerful question is for. It's to intrigue you. It's to get your brain, your audience's brain, firing and helping you think of a solution or posing a question and then letting their brains get captivated by it and then taking them on the journey. So let's say I was doing the same thing and I said, hey everyone, welcome and thank you so much for being here today. Before we get started, I wanted to set this question because this is the question that we're here to solve. How do you become more collaborative when you are further apart? How do you do this, especially in our blended remote situation now? Some of us are going back to work, some of us still aren't, some of us never will. How can you create that sense of teamwork and collaboration in an environment, a hybrid environment, or whatever environment that you're in? So we're here to show you today how to do that. And then I would transition to my content. I would show them like, well, this is how you do it. And I'd go into it and we do it that way. So that one's pretty easy as well. Pretty easy to find a question. Think of what the ultimate question you're trying to answer that's connected to the business pain for the audience that you're presenting to. If it's business related, you might be doing a keynote, a presentation, a demo on something completely different, or a story on something completely different. Maybe you're thinking of your overall company's brand story. If you're a marketer, if you're in one of those positions, what is the question that you're answering, that your story answers and connects to how you can solve problems for your ideal customers, your ideal avatars? So really think about that. A powerful question can be a great way to capture your audience's brain and make it curious. So the next thing you might want to use is an industry statistic. It is so much easier now to find these. You can almost always find a Gartner Magic Quadrant or something that's from Forrester or something that's happened from that's been done in a recent paper from Harvard. All kinds of different ways that you can go about doing a search for the topic or the problem you're trying to solve for your audience that day or trying to tell them about with your content, and then find an industry statistic that connects specifically to the story you're trying to tell, whether showing that there's a new trend that they might want to be paying attention to that they might not have known about previously, or something that has been happening for a while now and that maybe they've come to you to talk about your solution today because of what's happening in their industry. So that's an interesting way to go about and capture their attention as well. And your intention there is to convince, usually, to convince them that, hey, this is happening. You need to make a decision on what you want to do in order to have it serve you, whether you're an audience member, whether you're talking about business, something like that. So for instance, if I was going into role, I might say, hey, thank you so much for being here today. We're here to talk about how you can collaborate better as a team. And I want you to know that this isn't something that you're just noticing and that you might be thinking, well, is this the time to react to this? This is actually a trend that's been happening for a while. In fact, remote work growth, the amount of people who work remotely at least once per week has grown by 400% since 2010. And now, with what's happened in the last year and a half, it's just gone through the roof. 42% of employees with a remote work option plan to work remotely more often in the next 5 years. Between 2017 and 2018, telecommuting increased by 22%. Again, that was before the changes that we've seen happening. And if they could, 99% of people would choose to work remotely, but at least part-time for the rest of their careers. So this is a trend, notwithstanding of what we've all gone through in the last year and a half or so, that was already starting to happen. It's accelerated because of what's happened, but it's something that you can take advantage of now with the digital transformation that's happened, and specifically with our service that you can start using right now. And then I would transition to my content. So I'm out of role now. So that's another way. Use an industry statistic. It's not you saying, hey, you should pay attention to this. It's, hey, this is happening. Other people are measuring it. They're using the scientific method in these instances, and this is happening. So we're going to help you address it. So that's a nice way to go about that as well. So those were 3 examples that you could use right there. Again, you can start mixing and matching these things as you start getting more confident in yourself of how you want to grab your audience's attention. We use this all the time in video production at OMH Creative when we are grabbing people's attention when we're writing a script or a story. You always have to have that moment where you entice their brain to say, hey, just for the next couple of minutes, this is the most curiosity-inducing, the most interesting thing you could possibly pay attention to. Then their brain is open. A force field has gone down and they are open to receiving information. So just remember, it's not a nice to have. It's not just a theater parlor trick to grab people's information. It's not just for TED Talks. It's for any content that you want to give your audience. They are bombarded by so many messages every day. This is one of them. You need to have something to pay attention before you go right into your content. So if you have a strong tease, if you take the time to be really clear on the method you're going to use, how you're going to tie it to your message, to your actual content, and then a strong intention. What's your intention? Make it action-oriented. If you do that, you're going to be able to grab their attention so their mind is open to your message. And that's what we want. We want minds to be open to new possibilities before we start getting into content and before we start giving them the goods, if you will. So that's what I wanted to talk to you about today. I'm going to probably go ahead and do this again next week as well. Doesn't look like we have anything in the chat right now. It's totally fine. I also might not have integrated this correctly. So if you have asked a question and I just haven't seen it, I will go on to the different platforms a few minutes after this and I'll address any questions that you might have. Again, if you want more information about kind of what this was all about and how this component fits into the overall structure that we teach with our Storied Teams coaching, that you can find at storiedteams.com if you want to find out more information about that. You can go to our YouTube channel and you can see the live I did previously on this. Other than that, the tease is going to be able to help you do what I just told you. It's going to grab their attention so their mind is open to your message. Take the time to do this. It's not a nice to have. It's essential if you want to be a strong presenter, if you want to really have your message land. And this can help you not only when you're selling situations or when you're talking to an audience at a keynote or something like that, an industry event. This is something that will help you in your career. Being able to know that even if you're in an internal team meeting and you need to be able to grab people's brain and entice it in such a way that they can start to, it's open to the possibilities before you move right onto content. It will really, really help you in your career, in the things that you do. So thank you so much for your time today. Next time, I'm going to get into the tell and more than likely the told as well, because of the fact that the tell kind of writes itself and it's like a 5-minute thing. So I'll go over the rest of the structure more than likely next time. And if you do have any questions, feel free to go ahead and either drop them in the comments right here, or you can find us again at storiedteams.com. You can ask us a question there and somebody will get back to you right away. Thanks so much for your time today. Have a great week.